Welcome to another episode of Fantasy News. Here's hoping fourth time recording this is the charm with technical difficulties. And without any further ado, we're going to get into quite the smorgasbord of fantasy news today. Quite a bit of adaptation news, some interesting announcements, and Disney's ultimate flex. And let's jump into that right now. Disney posted a thread on Twitter that goes on and on and on with over 600 titles announced to be on Disney Plus starting day one on November 12th. This was then topped off by a crowning jewel of a 3-hour-long trailer for everything that will be on Disney Plus. I know not everyone's the biggest Disney fan. I have my issues with them occasionally as well. They certainly dominate the news cycle every now and then. But this is just objectively impressive. Everyone should be willing to admit this is just huge. Under one company's umbrella, just Disney, they have enough content to run and operate an entire streaming service that seems nearly endless. It's impressive to watch it jump from Star Wars to Marvel to Disney Classic to a TV show you barely remember from when you were a kid, but you have tons of nostalgia for. It's just a cycle that goes on and on. And of course, it being Disney, many of these are some of the best TV shows or movies of all time, and you can't discredit that. This is one hell of a flex and one strong move during the streaming wars. But let's go ahead and jump into the wider fantasy news here today. The Stand has announced yet another cast member to its already very impressive cast list, and that is Heather Graham. With names like Whoopi Goldberg attached, The Stand already has one of the most impressive cast lists of any of the adaptations coming down the road, but I just am more and more excited for this the closer we get. I'm really hoping they can bring Stephen King's masterpiece, The Stand, accurately to life, because obviously Stephen King's adaptations have been incredibly hit or miss in the past. Boy, I hope their comedic chemistry goes well together, John Krasinski and Ryan Reynolds are teaming up for a fantasy comedy called Imaginary Friends, the premise of which being there's imaginary friends, someone can see them, and a lot of them feel abandoned, some turn evil, and now they must go off and fight the bad imaginary friends. This is odd. Who would have thought 10 years ago that Ryan Reynolds' resume would include Deadpool, Pikachu, and an Imaginary Friends movie? This guy has quite the resume building up underneath him here. Who would have ever thought that Jim from The Office and Van Wilder would end up as some of the biggest names in Hollywood? And Sonic fans can rejoice! Do it! Start rejoicing right now. A complete redesign for the iconic hedgehog has been released for the upcoming Sonic movie. All of you who memed this atrocious design, objectively it was bad, to the point where the studio agreed to redesign it, can have your day in the sun, and probably send a firm thank you to the artists who had to last minute make a bunch of changes. I'm sure they were paid for it, but boy oh boy, I'm sure that was a pain to do as well. And in casting news, I'm not too sure about. Neil Patrick Harris has reportedly joined the Matrix 4 adaptation. I like Neil Patrick Harris, don't get me wrong. I really enjoy his comedic performances left and right. I think the guy has comedy chops. But his dramatic roles have been a bit disappointing to me, especially Gone Girl stands out as the best example. I just found his performance in that movie to be not the most enthralling. He stood out. His performance just didn't fit the vibe of the movie. And I'm hoping, I really am, that he's grown as an actor since then, and we can see Neil Patrick Harris prove himself within the Matrix franchise to be a dramatic actor. But I'm just a bit skeptical as of right now. Who would have ever thought Neil Patrick Harris involved with The Matrix? That's different. And in Let's Beat This Dead Horse Until It's Dust news, an Alien TV series has been announced over at Hulu. I like the Alien franchise, especially the first two movies. Those are great. Prometheus was mixed, Covenant was not good, but I really want to see this franchise reach the highs I think it can, but recently that seems less and less likely. It just seems to be rehashing the same ideas again and again. Honestly, I might make some Alien fans mad here, but I really want to see them shake off the xenomorph, not be tethered down to one creature design that legitimately is legendary, but isn't enough to carry a franchise for decades. There's a lot of ideas and philosophy that have been explored here that deserve the time and care put into them, but the more they feel the need to just shoehorn in a xenomorph left and right, the more I feel like it's going to be held back overall. I'm hoping this TV series diverges from that. I don't want to see the climax of season 1 to be, oh look, there's a xenomorph on the ship, come back for season 2. Break free from that. Alien doesn't have to equal xenomorph. Explore space, do it in a gritty, interesting way, and I don't know, I just feel like it's being held back by one iconic design. And don't get me wrong, that creature design is in my top 10 for any movie ever, but I just want to see it break free. I want to break free! We're going to talk about 2 trailers really quickly here today. Doolittle, starring Robert Downey Jr., had its trailer drop, and as someone who was born in the 90s, and my only experience with Dr. Doolittle is the Eddie Murphy movies, this was a weird turn, but as I'm being told in my research, apparently this is more true to the original concept for Dr. Doolittle. Good, I guess, for Dr. Doolittle fans. But I'd like to see this do well. I love Robert Downey Jr., and I don't want to see his first big step after the MCU to be a flop. I'd like to see him find great success, but this trailer didn't inspire much in me. There wasn't a whole lot in it, to be honest, aside from a bunch of beauty shots, and the poster is not good. And for my League of Legends fans out there, rejoice! We are getting a trailer for a new animated series for League of Legends called Arcane. I am excited for this as someone who doesn't play the game. I want to learn about the mythos and lore behind League of Legends. I've heard it's really interesting and there's a lot to be explored there. I want to be a part of that. I'm hoping this series can act as an avenue for people like me who aren't necessarily interested in the game but love awesome fantasy worlds to learn about it. And with the kick-ass animated style we see here, I'm actually pretty hopeful for this. I think it could be pretty great. And let's go ahead and jump into the Marvel Quickie news. We had Shriek reportedly joining the character roster for Venom 2. Taika Waititi, the director of the upcoming Thor Love and Thunder, has said they are not necessarily going to drop the breast cancer storyline for the character Jane Foster. I hope that's the case. I don't see why they wouldn't. It's a great storyline for the character, and it's one of the better ways, I think, to kick off a character arc for someone who kind of needs a reboot, like the original Thor did as well. Jane Foster's character didn't do a whole lot in the original Thor movies, so I'd like to see them take a more dramatic approach. And I would like to see Taika Waititi honestly tackle the story arc of a cancer survivor. That is interesting to me. I want to see that. And the Deadpool writers have confirmed that Deadpool 3 will be R-rated, which is fantastic. A lot of people did fear now that Deadpool is back under the Disney umbrella, it could revert to PG-13, but no, once again, you can rejoice. It's a very rejoiceful fantasy news. It will maintain its R rating. And in the final bit of fantasy news we are going to cover here today, Kevin Feige has added a title to his role over at Marvel, and that is Chief Creative Officer, meaning he will oversee all creative projects for Marvel TV and film. This is something I am very excited to hear. Kevin Feige has helmed the most ambitious cinematic universe ever to great success, and handing him more control over that universe can only be a good thing, especially with the recent struggles the TV Marvel universe has had. I would like to see that get a stronger place and have a more concise creative vision behind it, and I'm hoping he might have some input on the animated TV series as well, because those from Marvel have not been the best of all time. And hell, give the guy the video games too, because I want Marvel video games to be on the level that we've seen from the DC video games, which is DC's easy victory over Marvel there. They absolutely kill it when it comes to video games, and Marvel struggles at best. And then the last bit of superhero news we're going to cover here today. Zoe Kravitz has been cast as Catwoman aside Robert Pattinson's Batman. I don't have a whole lot to say about that. I think that's neat. I haven't really seen her as an actress, so cool. I know Robert Pattinson's totally redeemed himself in the indie movie scene, so I'm hoping Zoe Kravitz can do a good job as well. Cool. And in contentious fantasy news here today, the Carnival Row showrunners are no longer going to be a part of the project over at Amazon. They have left due to creative differences, and Eric Olson will take over running the show. I understand these showrunners apparently have been involved with Carnival Row for a long time, and for one of them especially, it seems to be a personal pet project, and it's disappointing to see someone who clearly cared so much about a series being forced out possibly, or leaving voluntarily. You never really know in these situations. But here is hoping that Eric Olson can firm up a show that I have found to be good, but not great. It definitely stands out for style and originality, but it falters a bit in the writing, in my opinion, as well as a few of the characters' acting. As I am sure many of you are aware due to recent headlines kind of exaggerating this situation quite a bit, Martin Scorsese has doubled down on his claims in the Marvel universe, not being cinema, but instead being closer to a theme park. I'm going to do a video on this in the future, going a little deeper into his exact claims, genre snobbery as a whole, whole, its history within fantasy, within action movies, within comedies even. Look for that in the next couple of weeks. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already, if you'd like to catch that down the road. And of course, if you'd like to see any of the stories I'm covering here, links in the description down below. Feel free to check them out and verify for yourself what's been going on. And while you're down there, if you wouldn't mind leaving a like on the video, I'd really appreciate it. It helps me here immensely. But in the final bit of news we're going to cover here, it's not necessarily fantasy news, but it's definitely BookTube news. YouTube has announced its own BookTube series. I have no issue with this whatsoever. I'm happy to see they've picked people from all sizes in terms of content creators, people with only tens of thousands to people with millions. And that is wonderful to see. I'm happy YouTube is doing this, and no, I don't see it as any kind of competition. High tides raise all ships, everybody, and I would love to see BookTube continue to be promoted on this platform. The more people become aware of BookTube actually being a thing, the more subscribers all of us across the platform will receive, and I love to see more and more people joining the community. Speaking of the community, if you would like to be a part of fantasy news in the future, go to the description down below and click into the Discord server. There you'll see a fantasy news channel, and feel free to submit any stories you would like to see covered here. Those are the people whose names you've been seeing pop up alongside the articles, and I would love to see more people be a part of this discussion in the Discord server. Like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you want to support what I do here. And have a good one, y'all. Peace!